The office clock ticked steadily towards 5, each second dragging a little longer than the last. I sat at my desk, surrounded by the hum of fluorescent lights and the clatter of keyboards. The world outside my window was fading into the golden hues of evening, but inside, I felt trapped in a dull routine. The divorce had been a bitter pill to swallow, a relentless weight on my chest, but today, something felt different. I was ready to move forward. I packed my bag with a newfound sense of purpose, my mind buzzing with anticipation for a quiet evening at home. I could finally take control of my life, one small step at a time. As I left the office, the cool evening air hit me like a refreshing wave, sweeping away the remnants of my day. Pulling into the local market's parking lot, I inhaled deeply, letting the scent of fresh produce and baked bread fill my lungs. The vibrant colors of the market drew me in, red tomatoes, green zucchinis, and yellow bell peppers all vying for my attention. I stepped inside, the familiar sound of chatter and laughter surrounding me. This was a space I cherished, it offered a simple escape from my worries. As I wandered through the aisles, I felt a smile tugging at my lips. Picking out ingredients for a modest dinner had become a small ritual for me, each item symbolizing a step toward reclaiming my identity. I stopped by the fresh herbs section, running my fingers over the leaves, savoring their scent. "Hey, Mark. You're looking well," called out Mrs. Jensen, an elderly woman who ran the bakery down the street. "Thanks, Mrs. Jensen. Just trying to eat healthier these days," I replied, grateful for her kindness. "Good for you. It's never too late to start," she said with a warm smile before moving on. I appreciated the small interactions that reminded me I was still part of a community. As I continued through the market, I picked up a small bunch of kale, thinking about how it would complement the salmon I planned to cook. Just as I reached the checkout line, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from my sister, Rachel. "Hey, just checking in. How are you holding up?" I quickly typed back, "Doing okay. Just at the market, picking up some dinner. Trying to stay positive." As I hit send, I noticed a group of friends laughing at the end of the aisle, their joy infectious. A pang of longing hit me. I missed having that kind of connection. I glanced at the fresh flowers displayed nearby and thought about how my life had become a series of monochromatic moments since the split. "Excuse me, do you have a moment?" A woman's voice broke through my thoughts, pulling me back to the present. I turned to find a young mother juggling a toddler in a shopping basket. "Can you help me pick out some apples? My son insists on getting the biggest ones, but I don't want to break my back," she laughed, glancing at her son, who was reaching for the largest apple on the shelf. "Sure thing," I replied, stepping over to assist. "How about these? They're sweet and juicy, and they won't break the bank or your back. Exactly what I need." "Thank you." She grinned as her son, giggling, clutched a massive apple like a trophy. As I helped her choose, I felt the warmth of human connection, a reminder that life continued outside my personal turmoil. With my groceries bagged, I stepped outside into the crisp evening air, feeling lighter than when I'd arrived. Each step back to my car felt like a small victory, a step away from the shadows of my past. I was ready to embrace the quiet evening ahead, relishing the small joys of my new beginning. Just as I was about to load my groceries into the trunk, a familiar figure caught my eye. There she was, Emily, my ex-wife's best friend, standing by the flower display with a bouquet in her hands. Our eyes met, and for a moment, I felt the ground shift beneath me. The last time I had seen her was at the divorce proceedings, a memory I'd rather forget. "Mark," she said, her voice tinged with surprise and hesitation. "Emily," I replied, trying to mask the flood of emotions that came rushing back. "It's been a while." "Yeah, it really has." She stepped closer, her grip on the bouquet tightening. "How have you been?" "I'm getting there, you know. Just taking it one day at a time," I said, shifting my groceries to my other hand. "And you? I heard about your split." "I'm really sorry." Her expression shifted slightly, the corners of her mouth twitching into a sad smile. Thanks. It's been rough, to say the least. It seems like infidelity is becoming a trend in our circles, huh? She chuckled, but the humor didn't quite reach her eyes. I guess it really is, I said, feeling the weight of shared grief in her words. It's tough to navigate these waters, especially when you think you know someone so well. Exactly, Emily replied, her voice growing softer. I thought I had it all figured out. But then, everything fell apart. We stood in silence for a moment, both grappling with the ghosts of our past relationships. I looked at her, really looked, and noticed how her usual brightness seemed dulled by heartache. There was a vulnerability in her eyes that mirrored my own, and for the first time, I felt a connection that went beyond our mutual acquaintances. I remember the last time we were all together, Emily said, her voice breaking the silence. At that dinner party, we were laughing, sharing stories. It feels like a lifetime ago. Yeah, I nodded, the memory flooding back, a night filled with laughter and hope, before everything turned sour. It's strange how quickly everything changed, right? 1 minute, everything seems perfect, and the next, she trailed off, shaking her head. It's like living in a soap opera, except it's real life, I replied, a rueful smile creeping onto my face. And the plot twists are never what you expect. Tell me about it, she said, her tone lightening a bit. At least we've got good material for our next writing session. If I had $1 for every plot twist, I'd be rich. We shared a laugh, the tension between us easing slightly. There was an understanding growing between us, forged in the fires of our shared experiences. Maybe we should meet up and write our stories together sometime, I suggested, surprised by my own boldness. Emily raised an eyebrow, a flicker of intrigue dancing in her eyes. You know what? I'd like that. It might be good to talk to someone who gets it. Just then, a cool breeze swept through the market, rustling the leaves of the nearby plants. Emily shivered slightly, pulling her cardigan tighter around her shoulders. Do you want to grab a coffee or something? It's a little chilly out here. Coffee sounds great. My treat, I said, motioning toward a nearby cafe. As we walked together, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of me was still wary, haunted by the past, but another part felt a spark of hope. Maybe this unexpected encounter could lead to something new, something healing. So, where do you go from here? Emily asked, glancing up at me. I'm not sure, to be honest, I admitted. I'm just trying to find my footing again. One step at a time, you know, she nodded thoughtfully. I get that. It's like learning to walk all over again, isn't it? Exactly, I replied, feeling a sense of camaraderie with her. But I'm hopeful. I've started focusing on things I love, trying to rediscover myself. That's a good approach, Emily said, her eyes brightening. We should all be focusing on what brings us joy. As we entered the cafe, the warmth enveloped us, contrasting with the cool air outside. We ordered our coffees and settled at a small table near the window, the scent of fresh brew filling the air. Here's to new beginnings, I said, raising my cup. To new beginnings, she echoed, clinking her cup against mine. In that moment, I realized that this unexpected encounter might be the first step towards something different, something that could pull us both out of our pasts and into the light. As we settled into our seats at the cafe, I couldn't help but notice how the soft glow of the overhead lights accentuated the delicate features of Emily's face. Her eyes sparkled with a mix of curiosity and resilience, the remnants of pain giving way to a budding sense of hope. I took a sip of my coffee, steeling myself for what came next. So, tell me, I began, eager to steer the conversation towards lighter topics. What have you been doing to cope with everything? Emily took a deep breath, contemplating my question. Well, I've been trying to rediscover some of my passions, she replied. I picked up painting again. It's been therapeutic, a way to express everything I've been feeling. That sounds amazing. I've always admired people who can create like that, I said, genuinely impressed. I can barely draw a stick figure. She laughed, the sound melodic and infectious. It's definitely not a Picasso, but it helps. What about you? Any new hobbies since the big split? I hesitated, considering how my life had been mostly about survival since the divorce. Not really. Just focusing on my job and cooking at home, I admitted. But I've been thinking about picking up hiking. I could use the fresh air and some time outdoors. Hiking, huh? Emily's interest piqued. Maybe we could go together sometime. It would be nice to have someone to share the experience with. I met her gaze, feeling a flutter in my chest at the suggestion. I'd like that. It's been ages since I've had someone to explore with, right? She said, her smile brightening. And who knows? Maybe I can paint the landscape afterward. We could make a day of it. Sounds like a plan, I replied, my heart racing at the thought of spending more time with her. There was something undeniably magnetic about her, a warmth that was both comforting and exciting. As we chatted, the conversation flowed easily, weaving in and out of our past relationships, the lessons we'd learned, and the hope for the future. It was refreshing to connect with someone who understood the complexities of love and heartbreak. Remember when you and Claire used to host those game nights? Emily asked, her eyes sparkling with nostalgia. Those were always so much fun. I was always impressed by how well you cooked. Ah, the infamous taco night, I chuckled, a fond memory surfacing. I still have the recipe. I might have to whip that up again sometime. But, you know, maybe for a smaller gathering, why not make it a date? Emily suggested, her tone light but laced with a hint of seriousness. A dinner date? I echoed, surprised by her directness. Why not? Just the two of us. No games, no distractions. Just good food and company, she proposed, her cheeks tinged with a hint of pink. I felt a rush of warmth at her suggestion. I'd like that, but I have to warn you, my cooking might not live up to your expectations, I said, feigning modesty. Hey, I'm willing to take that risk, she replied with a playful grin. Plus, it'll be fun. We can laugh at the disasters together. Okay, you're on. How about Friday? I suggested, my pulse quickening at the thought of having her in my home. Friday works. I'm looking forward to it, Emily said, her smile wide and genuine. I'll bring the dessert. You can't go wrong with chocolate cake, right? Absolutely. A perfect choice, I agreed, feeling a swell of excitement. It'll be a delicious evening. As we continued to chat, the cafe around us faded into the background. It felt like we were in our own little world, the laughter and stories creating a bubble of warmth that enveloped us. The air was charged with a new energy, an undeniable chemistry that hinted at possibilities I hadn't considered before. Before we knew it, hours had passed. We reluctantly acknowledged the time, aware that we each had lives to return to. As we stepped outside into the cool evening, the stars twinkled overhead, adding a magical touch to the night. I had a great time tonight, I said, looking into her eyes. Thank you for this. Me too, Mark. I didn't expect to enjoy myself this much, she replied, her voice softening. As we stood there, a moment of silence passed between us, filled with unspoken words and shared understanding. I could feel the weight of my past beginning to lift, replaced by the potential of something new, a new beginning that felt almost tangible. Good night, Emily, I said, my heart racing as I leaned in to give her a quick, tentative hug. Good night, Mark. See you Friday, she whispered, her warmth lingering even after we pulled apart. As I drove home, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was the start of something unexpected, a connection that could lead to healing and perhaps, even joy. Friday arrived with an unusual excitement swirling within me. I spent the day tidying my apartment, a mix of anticipation and nerves bubbling beneath the surface. I hadn't hosted anyone in months, let alone someone I shared such a complicated history with. The aroma of sautéed vegetables filled the kitchen, a vibrant contrast to the melancholy that had settled over my life since the divorce. As I arranged the dining table, I couldn't help but replay our conversations in my mind. Emily's laughter echoed, her warmth felt so comforting, and I was beginning to realize how much I had missed human connection. It wasn't just about the past, it was about the possibilities that lay ahead. The doorbell rang, and I felt a rush of adrenaline. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, took a deep breath, and opened the door. There stood Emily, holding a beautifully wrapped box. "Hi. I hope I'm not late," she said, her face lighting up with a bright smile. "Not at all. Perfect timing," I replied, stepping aside to let her in. "What did you bring?" She held up the box with a flourish. "Chocolate cake. I hope you like it." "I love it," I said, taking the box and placing it on the counter. "It looks amazing. But now I'm worried my cooking won't live up to your dessert." "Relax," she laughed, her eyes twinkling. "I'm sure whatever you made will be delicious. Besides, we're here to have fun, right?" "Right. Let me show you what I've prepared," I said, leading her to the dining table. The warm, inviting atmosphere filled the room, with soft music playing in the background. As we sat down, I could feel the tension in my shoulders begin to ease. We talked about everything, our jobs, favorite movies, and the quirks of our past relationships. It was refreshing, and the laughter came easily. "You know, I wasn't sure if I should come tonight," Emily admitted as she took a bite of the stir-fried vegetables. "I worried it would be awkward, given everything." "I get that," I said, nodding. "But I think it's been great so far. It feels nice to talk without any pressure." "Exactly," she exclaimed, her enthusiasm evident. "It's good to connect with someone who understands. It's like we're in this club of survivors, figuring things out together." "Definitely," I replied, smiling at her analogy. "And if we're survivors, we should celebrate our resilience." As we continued to eat, I felt an undeniable spark between us. Every shared glance, every laugh seemed to draw us closer. There was an electricity in the air, a promise of new beginnings. "Speaking of resilience, have you thought about what you want to do next?" she asked, leaning forward slightly, her gaze steady. I paused, considering her question. "I've been thinking about taking some time off work, maybe traveling. I want to experience something different, to really live again." "That sounds amazing. Where would you go?" she asked, her eyes shining with curiosity. "I've always wanted to hike the Appalachian Trail. I think it would be a good way to clear my head," I replied, surprised by how natural it felt to share my aspirations with her. "You should absolutely do that. It's a beautiful journey, and it would give you the space to reflect," she said, her tone encouraging. "Maybe I'll join you for part of it." "Really?" I asked, my heart quickening. "That would be incredible. We could set our own pace, enjoy the scenery." "Exactly. And we can reminisce about all the ridiculous things we've endured in our lives," she laughed. "Sounds like a plan," I said, imagining the two of us on the trail, free from our past burdens. After dinner, I led her to the living room, where we set the cake on the coffee table. I sliced it into generous pieces, the rich aroma wafting through the air. "This looks divine," I said, handing her a slice. "Let's see if it lives up to the hype." Emily took a bite, her eyes widening in delight. "Oh wow, this is fantastic. You've definitely outdone yourself. Glad you approve," I replied, feeling a rush of pride. "So, what's your secret to your chocolate cake? I need to learn for future reference." "It's all about the right balance of ingredients and, of course, a little bit of love," she said, her expression softening. "Love makes everything taste better." I felt a warmth spread through me at her words, realizing just how profound that simple statement was. You're right about that. Love really does transform everything. As we continued to share stories over dessert, I noticed the way her laughter filled the room, how her eyes sparkled with life. It was intoxicating, and I found myself drawn to her in ways I hadn't anticipated. "Mark," Emily said, her tone suddenly serious, breaking through my thoughts. "I want you to know that tonight means a lot to me. I haven't felt this connected to someone in a long time." "Me too, Emily. I didn't expect this evening to be so special," I confessed, feeling a rush of vulnerability. You've helped me see that there's more out there, more to look forward to. She smiled softly, a hint of something deeper lingering in her eyes. Maybe this is the start of a new chapter for both of us. I nodded, feeling the weight of her words sink in. I'd like that. I think we both deserve a chance to write something beautiful after everything we've been through. As the night wore on, the conversation flowed effortlessly, weaving a tapestry of shared experiences, laughter, and understanding. The past still loomed in the background, but it felt lighter somehow, as if we were crafting a bridge toward healing together. By the time Emily left, the moon hung high in the sky, casting a soft glow over the world outside. I stood at the door, watching her walk away, a sense of hope blooming within me. Perhaps, just perhaps, this was the beginning of something remarkable, an opportunity to embrace new love while honoring the lessons of the past.